Usually, when you hear Wall Street and public blockchain in the exact same sentence, it sort of sounds like a clash of two entirely different worlds.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one demands strict regulatory compliance, and the other was born from, this wild permissionless decentralization.
Right. But today, for all of you listening, we're doing a deep dive into a comprehensive 2026 analysis of the Avalanche network.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because the network is currently processing, I think it's 38 million transactions a day.
Yeah, about 38 million, which is exactly why the biggest banks are suddenly paying very, very close attention.
It's a huge shift. And our mission today is to give you a shortcut to understanding this.
Right. We want to look at how they went from just another crypto hype cycle into, well, pure institutional grade infrastructure.
Okay, so let's unpack this because to understand the Wall Street adoption, we really have to look at how Avalanche solved the notorious crypto traffic jam. Older networks get completely gridlocked, right?
Yeah, because every transaction is basically waiting in the exact same line. But Avalanche bypassed this using what they call repeated random subsampling.
Which sounds super technical, but it just means nodes quickly poll a small random group of peers.
Exactly. They pull them for agreement, and that creates this sub-second finality with almost zero energy use. And they split the architecture into three distinct chains.
The X, P, and C chains. So if I'm picturing this for you guys listening, is this tri-chain setup essentially like building separate dedicated highways for cargo trucks, local commuters?
Emergency vehicles, yeah. Instead of forcing everyone onto one jammed road.
Right. But wait, if the C chain, which is like our commuter highway, gets totally gridlocked by some meme coin frenzy, how does the underlying engine keep the X chain cargo trucks moving? Like, aren't they running on the exact same protocol?
Well, they use the same underlying consensus engine, but, and this is key, they maintain entirely separate state ledgers. So a traffic jam on the C chain only consumes C chain computing resources. The nodes that are processing massive institutional asset transfers on the X chain simply aren't bogged down by the smart contract spam right next door.
That makes total sense. So they solved the speed and the isolation issues. But for a long time, building a custom sidechain on Avalanche still required massive upfront capital.
It did, yeah.
Which obviously kept a lot of enterprises out. And I guess that brings us to the Avalanche 9000 upgrade.
Right, so the specific bottleneck there was the validator requirements. Previously, if you wanted to launch your own Layer 1 on Avalanche, you had to buy and stake a massive amount of the main AVX token just to secure your project.
Which is incredibly expensive.
Exactly, so the ACP77 upgrade severed that requirement. By decoupling the validators from the main network, the cost of launching a custom chain dropped by like 99.9%.
Wow.
Yeah, you could suddenly secure your network using your own token or just a much smaller validator set.
And that specific cost reduction is really what triggered this massive explosion in real-world asset tokenization. I mean, the numbers in this report are just wild.
Well, they are.
Like Progmat migrating over $2 billion in Japanese securities, and Bergen County, New Jersey partnering to tokenize $240 billion in property records.
It's massive institutional adoption.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and I keep wondering about this. Wall Street is notoriously risk-averse. How are these heavily regulated entities actually doing this safely? I mean, a county government or a Japanese bank isn't going to broadcast sensitive property transfers on a public ledger.
Well, they aren't. They're using what Avalanche calls the evergreen framework.
Okay.
Because the upgrade made launching custom chains so cheap, institutions deploy these bespoke, fully permissioned blockchains. They control exactly who is allowed to validate and who can transact.
I see. So they get the sub-second finality of the Avalanche engine, but with absolute privacy and regulatory compliance. But wait, there is a glaring disconnect here. If all this multi-billion-dollar institutional money is migrating over and they hit a reffined 1.7 million active addresses in early 2026, why did the AVX token price just flatline between $9 and $13 during that exact same period?
Yeah, so analysts call that the fundamental price divergence. You really have to look at the market positioning and the tokenomics.
Right.
So Ethereum is entrenched as the heavy armored vehicle, right? It's slow and expensive, but trusted with the biggest treasuries. Solana is the retail supercar built for high-speed meme coin trading.
And Avalanche sort of sits in the middle as this modular hub.
Exactly. But the real anchor on the price is the supply mechanics.
Because they burn transaction fees, right? So shouldn't more usage mean less supply and higher prices?
In theory, yes. Avalanche does burn 100% of its transaction fees. However, that deflationary pressure is currently being completely swallowed by the scheduled emission of new staking rewards.
Ah, got it.
Yeah, there are still millions of tokens being released into circulation to incentivize those validators.
So what does this all mean for the network? Are they essentially in a race, just waiting for global transaction volume to get so massively high that the fee burns finally outpace those remaining reward tokens?
That is exactly the race they're in. With roughly 360 million reward tokens left to emit, Avalanche is really an infrastructure play waiting for the sheer volume of global tokenized assets to tip those tokenomic scales.
It makes a lot of sense. They've built the separate highways, they slashed the tolls, and now the heavy institutional cargo is actually starting to use the roads.
Yep. They are actively positioning themselves as an enterprise-grade intranet of blockchains. And this foundational infrastructure is being swapped out while most people aren't even looking.
The financial plumbing of the world is just actively moving on-chain.
It really is.
Which leaves you with an interesting thought to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive. If networks like this successfully capture the multi-trillion-dollar global asset market, what happens when everyday physical assets like your car title or your home deed are seamlessly traded in sub-seconds on a blockchain?
It's a crazy thought.
Will we soon reach a point where you're using crypto every single day to do entirely normal things without even realizing it? Something to think about.